please?
Sure. Ms. Bowes. Ms. Evans.
Here.
Ms. Farmer.
Here.
Ms. Groger.
Here.
Mr. Johnson.
Present.
Dr. King. Mr. Pluta. Ms. Santos.
Here.
Mr. Van Hise.
Here.
You have a quorum?
Thank you. Okay. At this time, we will enter into executive session. The discussion will include HIB as well as negotiations. Thank you.
Will any action be taken in executive session? I don't believe so. It'll be done
I don't believe there will be any
Thank you.
action taken in executive session
Thank
this
you.
evening. Thank you.
And Mr. Eldridge, just because I know that in the Mercer courts require for the motion to go into executive session, we anticipate that this will last approximately 20 minutes with no official action being taken.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In the motion? So moved.
Second?
Is there a second?
I have a motion and a second. Your call, Ms. Farmer.
Yes, if we
All
could.
in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we'll go into executive session. Thank you.
Okay. They went into executive session already. I really didn't pay attention, sorry. Ready for a test? Okay. Talking from the podium. We're masked at the podium. You can almost hear me. Test 1, 2. That's without the mask.
Once I disconnected this, it stopped.
Okay, so the hum is coming from that connection to the other computer. Hello. Testing in 3, 2, 1. Testing, checking for hum. Testing 1, 2, 3. Another test. 1, 2, another test.
This is not going to go. And Andrew's presenting, we're in trouble.
Calling the meeting to order. Thank you. Thank you. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. As required under law, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided via email and/or fax to the Times, the Lawrence Ledger, the Public Library, and has been filed with the municipal clerk. This notice was provided prior to 48 hours required by the Open Public Meetings Act. The board reserves the right to limit public discussion of personnel items and other matters as defined by law, as defined in the law. Thank you. And at this moment, we will have the flag salute. If everyone would please stand. Thank you. At this time, we will have student representatives report.
Hi, my name is Emily Jorgensen, and I am a junior. And so we're here to talk about the clubs and what's going on right now. In Operation Smile, our next meeting is February 24th, and we're meeting during Resource. What's been going on January 30th, we had a virtual event with the New Jersey Regional Leadership Council, and we listened to 3 speakers. They talked about cleft palates and medical mission engineer and a speaker who used to have a cleft palate and now he does not, and we got to listen to their experiences. And then what's coming up, we're talking about signing up for International Student Leadership Conference. We haven't had one since before COVID, and we're talking about signing up and going to University of Miami over the summer. So that's what's going on in Operation Smile. And then there's theater, where we're currently doing sing-grams for Valentine's Day and the show. Students just started rehearsing for Once Upon a Mattress, and the shows are on March 31st, April 1st, and April 2nd.
Hi, I'm Jessica Everman, and I'm also a junior. I want to start off with a sports update. The winter sports are all pretty much finishing up right now with all of their regular games. Now they're all into the state conference, so everything's up to how well they do in that in terms of finishing up. And then looking ahead, we have our spring sports coming up in about a month, just under a month actually. And that's pretty exciting for everyone involved in track, golf, lacrosse, baseball, softball, and boys tennis. Hopefully it will be a little bit more of a regular season compared to last year in terms of COVID. And then an update on DECA. Members who made it past the regional competition are preparing right now for the state competition, which is going to be at the end of this month in Atlantic City. Regional was canceled in January, so this competition is going to be the first one that's in person since January of 2020, which is pretty exciting for all of the DECA members to finally be able to do their role plays and everything in person and have some type of normal DECA stuff that we're all used to. And then for Green Action Team, they're preparing for their Green Fair, which usually happens annually in mid-March. Students right now are developing their concepts for the individual stands that will educate about climate change as well as promote ways to achieve a more green lifestyle. So everyone keep an eye out for the official date, and hopefully it is in person this year as it was on Zoom last year.
Hi, I'm Leo Backus, and I'm also a junior at LHS. I'm here to tell you a bit about another club, which is the Big Brother, Big Sister program. It's a partnership between LHS and the Ben Franklin Elementary School, and it's overseen by the Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Mercer County. So along with some of my fellow LHS peers who participate in the program. I go to Ben Franklin every Thursday after school and spend an hour with my assigned little. And the program is meant to provide Ben Franklin kids with the opportunity to interact with older kids in a positive, constructive, and supportive environment. And we do some structured activities, playing games and helping kids with homework and things like that. So that's another program at LHS. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
When did that program start? The bigs and the littles, when did that start? How long ago?
It's been going on for
Serious? That is awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, sure there.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for that report. You're more than welcome to go take care of any schoolwork or anything that you might want to do. You're welcome to stay for the meeting, but I don't want to get you caught in the front row and not be able to go.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Another round of applause. Okay, moving right along. Next on the agenda is recognition and acknowledgement.
Good evening, everyone. As it is Black History Month, I want to acknowledge and recognize the efforts of our students and our staff, really taking this opportunity to enhance our efforts towards equity, diversity, and inclusion. I just want to share a few of the highlights that are going on in our schools. At our high school, really led by Jametta Clark and our Black Student Union, they have created an opportunity for a guest speaker series, and I know there's information that up on our website, but really great opportunities to hear some wonderful speakers set up by our students and by Jametta. And also the high school will be having a Black History celebration. Unfortunately, it will have to be remote, but it is on February 27th, and if you have not seen those in the past, they're really a fantastic efforts and really statewide, coming to celebrate here in Lawrence. So try to join that if you can. Other schools have planned activities throughout the month focusing on Black leaders, scientists, inventors, artists, and more. Students are doing research, they're making presentations, they're reading, they're singing, and they're writing to learn and grow their understanding of the important contributions of African Americans. And keeping it Lawrence strong, even one student at LES is interviewing the owner of the Gingered Peach, and we'll make a digital poster with the owner, Joanne Kennedy Brown. So congratulations on that. I'm looking forward to seeing that. And tonight, during the equity presentation, Mr. Thompson will be sharing more about our efforts and how it all ties into our important work of equity. And with that, we have the Lawrence Township Education Foundation and LIS here for a really exciting grant. So I will bring them up so they can share that and we can hear from them and our great students.
Thank you.
Her entourage. Remember, don't be nervous. Told you that, guys. Congratulations.
Parents are welcome to come behind the board if you want to take pictures.
Parents, if you want to, sir, if you want to come behind
right
us,
back
so
around.
you can get that, the light's kind of in
Yeah,
the eyes,
stay
but
further
other than
back
that, makes it easier.
And we will take a big picture. Oh, exciting.
Might wait you out a little bit, but.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Karen Feynman. I'm the Executive Director of the Lawrence Township Education Foundation, and I'm happy to be here. And here's my president, Bessie.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here for this amazing award.
I always forget she's there and I forget to introduce her. As most of you are aware, the LTEF funds educator grants twice during the school year, once in the fall and once in the spring. Perfect time to just remind everyone, to the educators listening, that spring grants are due on Monday, February 14th. So hopefully those more of those are coming in. But in addition to these grants that range from a few hundred to $10,000 at the most, we, once a year, invest in a larger scale project, either fund it completely ourselves or help LTPS accomplish something that they want to do. And we call this our winter grant cycle. Recent past projects that you may remember include the Slackwood STEAM Center and the LMS Art Room. So this year, we received an application for LIS Recess Reboot. And this idea started when several LIS students approached Dr. Fisher to find out why the school did not have a swing set. Recognizing not only that there was a student desire for swings, but also the importance of recess and the opportunity for the structured and non-structured play that is so necessary, Dr. Fisher applied for this grant. This proposal included the swing set, which they really, really want, but also the basketball courts are in dire need of some renovation, so renovating that. And also some stencils and materials and pencil paints for the blacktop, which will be repaved this year for some more games and activities. So I'm happy to say that we were able to come and surprise this wonderful group on Monday and tell them that we are funding the project in a sum of $50,000. I'd like to thank the following students for leading the charge in this initiative, and you can raise your hand and wave, and if I say your name wrong, I apologize. Sarah and Jenna Simon. Sylvia, is it Poi? Powie, I said that wrong, Powie. Claire Buck. Shay Moog. And Elena Jersey. And Oliver Valentino. They not only helped, start this idea, they starred and produced a video. I think Mrs. Heller and Oliver took charge of that video that actually swayed the board to fund this. It was an amazing video that showed the need and the desire for the swing set especially, but for all the other things as well. However, their work is not done. I hate to say it, but it's not, and they know it. While we have agreed to fund this project, this grant is contingent upon Lawrence Township approving it. You may not know, but the fields surrounding LIS are not owned by LTPS, and in fact are owned by Lawrence Township, and they maintain those fields. So they need to agree for us to do this project. So step one is complete, they have the money, and I think that's actually maybe the harder part, right? So help me wish these kids good luck as they go present this to the Lawrence Township Town Council and make this project a reality. In the meantime, congratulations to these wonderful kids, Dr. Fisher, Mrs. Heller, and all of LIS. We're going to take a picture with a big check.
They've got it. I know they do.
Let's move like that way, guys.
It's heavy. I love it.
Should they get on the stage?
You want to go on stage?
Wherever you need to go, yeah.
Yeah.
You got one more?
Smile.
And then right here. And 3, 2, 1.
Like it.
And 3, 2, 1. Smile with your eyes.
Smile.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, Karen, how will we know, Karen, or Dr. Fisher, how will we know when the students are going to present to town council?
Their meeting in February. Their meeting in we didn't get the
Would you let us know? Because I'd like to go and, yes, yes. Because we want to know that they,
Thanks, Ms. Heller.
That's civics education.
Thanks, Karen.
101.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
we
Thank
have-
you very much again to the Lawrence Foundation and to our students at LIS. Wish you the best of luck with your next presentation. I'm sure you'll do an excellent job representing Lawrence. Thank you. Okay. And
Yes,
yeah,
and I echo the thanks to the Ed Foundation. They do so much to support the greatness in our schools, and it's really great when our students lead the charge and really do something to make not only IS better, but the whole school community making that playground better. So thank you. And you're more than welcome to go to. We have a couple presentations tonight. It's going to be quite long. You're welcome to stay. But if you'd like to go now, we'll let you scoot out.
Yep.
Our feelings won't be hurt.
Okay, thank you again. Thank you so much, and best of luck with your next presentation. Okay. All right. Are there any other recognition or acknowledgements or?
No.
No? Okay. Moving right along, we'd like to now go to the adoption of minutes. We can have a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Okay. Mr. Eldridge, if you could call the roll.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Mrs. Groger?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Abstain.
Dr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Pluta?
Yes.
Ms. Santos?
Yes.
Mr. Van Hise?
Yes.
Ms. Farmer?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Okay. And now for the reports to the board. We'll start with the superintendent's report.
Thank you. There are many questions about what our district is going to do about masks come March 7th. And I want to begin my reply by thanking our students, our staff, and our parents for their support and their compliance, doing the very best to keep all of our students safe. Nothing about COVID has been easy or ideal. The decision that we have to make is a lot more complex than the governor making an announcement that there will no longer be a state-required mandate. Before making a final decision, we as a board need more guidance and more information from the Department of Education and the Department of Health. Nothing works in isolation, and the Department of Education has to take the time and devote the resources to truly understand the impact it would have on schools. And fortunately, they have a month to do that, which is a lot more time than we usually have with any matter with COVID. The governor's new announcement on Monday impacts existing guidance. For example, what happens when a student comes back to school after a positive case of COVID? Currently, the guidelines are clear that for that student, he or she must wear a mask for the next 5 days. Now, will this mask be optional, or is it not for that child? His announcement also impacts the guidance as it relates to close contacts being required to quarantine. This rule of quarantining fluctuates based on not only where the child is in the classroom, but whether he or she or those around him, those close contacts, are properly wearing a mask. So if the quarantine rules don't change, schools will be forced to send home all the students who are in close contact 6 feet now of that student without a mask, which now will create many, many more students being sent home on a weekly basis. So once there's an official word on masking and for the students and staff, and all the parameters are laid out by the Department of Health and the Department of Ed, then our district will be able to make an informed and smart decision. Coupled with how quickly positivity rates and things change with COVID, sometimes seemingly changing by a day or two, making a decision today or next week probably would only cause that need to reverse that decision or change it again and again and again. And we don't want to do that to our students, our staff, or our families. It's amazing that a little over a month ago, we had 103 reported confirmed cases in our school. Today, we had 2. So we have come a long way. Hopefully we'll stay in that progression. But if it jumps back up to 50 or 103, I think that would heavily impact our decision as we move forward. Our plan is to have a final decision out to our community by February 28th. We will put a letter out tomorrow about this, but I just want to have it for anybody that's here and watching. In our calendar, which gets somewhat confusing, and I understand that, we have an emergency close day set for Tuesday, February 22nd. It's a scheduled day as a makeup day that our district has put on their calendar when we built it. Thus, if we don't have a snow day or an emergency that we have to close before the 22nd, our schools are closed for our students on the 22nd and our 10-month staff, giving them the 4-day weekend. So I know it kind of sneaks up and it's confusing, but if we don't have any days off because of weather or an emergency before the 22nd, we will be off on that day. And finally, I want to give a brief update on our strategic plan. We've been working on that plan with our leadership team since August. In October, we sent out a survey to our entire community and our staff. As we know, the key element and buy-in for a strategic plan is including parents, community, staff, and students. And we had over 300 staff and 400 parents participate and complete that survey. On December 15th, we hosted a community event. It had to be on Zoom, which had over 100 parents sign up. And then on January 18th, we held a similar Zoom session for our special education parents. Again, with the goal of getting feedback, input, and having dialogue with our families to form our plan. Also, Dr. Zuckerman and I have facilitated a faculty meeting in all of the schools, except for one, we have to do that next week, to get feedback and involve our staff in their buildings. So right now, in our stages of strategic planning, we're on the first stage of still data gathering, although that is quickly coming to an end as we are going to work with our consultants tomorrow with our leadership team to really dive deeper into that information. We have heard from parents and staff that those focus areas that we have, student achievement, health, wellness, and safety, and equity, we understand that they're deeply connected and they're intertwined. And you can't have excellence in one without success in the other two. So I want to briefly share some of the slide results so you can see the work that we're doing behind the scenes and what we're working from. And we've really taken the information from our staff and our parents to gain themes and an understanding, and soon we'll be doing that with our students. So from our staff, and it was really a forced question, and I understand how they're intertwined. 56% of our staff put health and wellness and safety as the #1 priority, where 32% followed with student achievement and then 12% equity. Families kind of flipped it and put the onus on student achievement at 63%, with 28% on health and wellness. And again, this was back in October. I would think that as time changed, those responses would also change depending on what's going on in our schools and going on in the world. But obviously, I think our staff realizes that if our kids don't feel safe and well and belong, they're not going to learn. And I know parents know the importance of school is to educate our students so they have choices and can do whatever they want to do in the world. So those are the things that we're really going to work on. And that does also have a sense of equity and belonging that's intertwined with those. So when you look at health and wellness, really the themes that came up, and our consultants took all the data and compiled it, but I want to share a brief few snippets of a theme that the better we care for our faculty and staff, the better outcomes will be for our students. With health and wellness goals being a top priority, we can better equip our students to learn and give them the best chance to thrive in their academic careers. Some of the areas that we asked very pointed of where are we aligned with that goal? People wrote in our efforts with character education, in our efforts to build relationships between staff and students and families, and our focus on mindfulness. Areas that we could do better, or where maybe we're not aligned, or we could expand. We need more community-wide activities engagement in health wellness. We need more time to plan and collaborate. And we need more peer support groups. In the theme of student achievement, something that came up often and kind of was put together was, if we hit that goal and we hit excellence, we would be seen as a district able to navigate all the challenges everyone is facing and still achieve the primary focus of a school, which is quality education. And if we hit that goal, all students would be able to meet and overcome the challenges of a rigorous curriculum, participate in extracurricular activities, and learn how to manage time effectively. Again, just highlighting where people felt we were aligned was our shift in our schedules, giving more students time to go into deeper thinking. Our communication and coordination and sharing with our families. Areas that we could expand and grow, consistency. And that was consistency among grading and expectations among all of our grade levels. And still time to deeper focus for deeper learning and application of materials. And then lastly, on equity, the themes that keep coming up, and I'm sure Mr. Thompson will speak about them tonight, we would really thrive if every student, every parent, every staff member felt welcomed, and every person felt a sense of belonging. Areas where people feel we're aligned are the social justice curriculum and much more open dialogue about race. Areas that we can expand and improve, including all of our students, including those with disabilities. Move from awareness to application, and provide more resources for families. So as I alluded to before, tomorrow our administrative team is going to use the data, especially on those focus areas, and create a draft vision of what's possible and begin to form aspirational goals. What could it look like in 3 to 5 years? And really doing it under the umbrella of creating excellence for all. Then we will take that information, build it, vet it, and then bring it back to our community. We'll bring it back to our community through another survey in March. But we're also going to have smaller community conversations so we really can talk about those topics and talk about our vision and aspirational goals and get feedback. And this time, we will include our students even more and really hear from them because they're an important part of our plan. So those are really where we'll go in March and April, and then hopefully May and June, finalize those and make a presentation in June to the Board of Education regarding our new strategic plan. So it's my pleasure to share that, and I'm excited about the process. It's really going to be a breathing document that I hope we all know and can talk about, and hopefully it will be supporting, as the parents had said, our efforts on student achievement. And with that, it's a nice turnover to our report tonight on our testing and the things that we did last year when we were out, but working on our student achievement. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Zuckerman.
Nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Good evening.
All right. No clickers?
What's that?
No clicker system?
No. That this is your first opportunity to be able to participate with us in the assessment presentation. We've tried everything.
Yes.
Each time that we go through this presentation, we try to model some of the instructional strategies that are used in the classroom. We've done Kahoot, we've done kind of different gaming protocols, we've done strict just discussions.
And I've learned how to cheat on every one of them.
Joanne, you have won every one. How about that? So you have absolutely succeeded, and then kind of surpassed all of our expectations. So I do thank you for that. It is a pleasure to be here with you this evening. As Dr. Kaysen was just alluding to, The strategic plan obviously sets our goals and sets our mission for the next 3 to 5 years, depending upon obviously the length of the plan. And assessment is absolutely at our top priority. We all want our students to achieve every single thing we can academically. But there are many other components. And obviously, coming off the heels of almost coming up on 2 years since the pandemic started, we obviously have had many things thrown at us that kind of obviously are, that we have to do simultaneously while working with our students on their academics. And we will continue to do that because that's what's needed to be done to be able to help our students succeed. With that being said, the assessments that we're going to go through this evening, there are in a minute, maybe? No? I may have blocked it. All right, there we go. So we're going to go over a variety of information, and I'm joined by what I feel is the best instructional staff in the state. If not, kind of can probably target some of those within the country as well. Maureen Hayes, who is our elementary humanities supervisor, is unable to be here with us this evening. She unfortunately just had, or fortunately for her, unfortunately for us, just had surgery today. So she's at home and she's watching us. So good evening, Maureen, knowing that your data is certainly represented in here. We're going to be talking to you today about some of the local assessments, some of the state assessments, as well as kind of how our students do on global assessments as well that they participate in. Regardless of what these measures are, they are one measure. And obviously, we use all of them to be able to culminate that information about each child. The teachers do really the heavy work by filtering through this data and using this data to be able to help inform the instruction so we can have a more personalized plan for each individual child. With that being said, the information that you're going to see, we've again, coming off the heels of the pandemic, we're in a little crossroads. Normally, we have years to be able to look back to for this data. We have not administered the state assessment in 2 years. Yes, we just administered a Start Strong assessment earlier this year, but that's a one-time assessment. That assessment will never be implemented again as required by the state. So we have a data point, but unfortunately we don't have that historical data to go along with that. Are we still using that? Absolutely. But we're using that for just, again, one other data point, and we're using that in conjunction with the others that we have. This year, the state will be administering a new graduation assessment, the Nj Gpa. That is a graduation assessment for the current juniors, sophomores, and freshmen that are currently in our high school. As I was just in a meeting this morning, they have yet to set the graduation requirement for the current 8th graders, so that may change. But for right now, we know that this is a graduation assessment, and it is going back, for those of you that have been here for a while, more similar to what the HESPA was several years ago. So that will be a new assessment that obviously we'll then learn, and we'll add that to our repertoire that we have. We will then also administer the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment, which assesses the students on the New Jersey Student Learning Standards. That will be administered again, but again, we haven't done that for 2 years, and it's a really completely different group of students with different circumstances. So we have to look at that a little bit differently as well. With all of that being said, the supervisors and myself met with CIPD for a fairly lengthy conversation that we had on the assessment information. And it was a great conversation. This evening, although I've gone very long in my introduction, we are looking to have an abbreviated assessment presentation for you that will give you an overview. And if anybody, whether the board or anybody from the public, would like more information, please feel free to contact me. I'm happy to go into anything more in depth. With that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Kristen Burke. Yes, you want that?
I'll take it.
All right.
Hopefully it works
You
for me.
never turn away the power.
I don't. Good evening. My name is, thank you, Dr. Zuckerman. My name is Kristen Burke. I am the elementary math and science supervisor and also the K-12 instructional technology supervisor here in Lawrence. And couldn't be prouder than, I'm super proud to be a part of this district. And as Dr. Zuckerman alluded to, we tried to summarize our presentation, but as you can imagine, we really like looking at data and finding trends in data and making some instructional decisions based on the data. So we tried to summarize, and hopefully it's not as long, and hopefully it's engaging. So I am going to spend a little bit of time speaking to a couple of our local assessments that we use here in the district, specifically iReady and Dreambox.
iReady is an online math and reading software program that we're using this year. We used it for the first year last year with just reading. We used a different program, which I'll speak to in a little bit, Dreambox, last year for math. But this year we're using it for reading and for math. And not only does it have a diagnostic component, which we administer 3 times a year, we're actually just wrapping up some of our winter diagnostic benchmark data and looking at that. It also places students in a personalized learning pathway, so they're working through modules that are self-paced, that are adapting to student needs in real time, which is really great. As you can imagine, it's a very beneficial resource for us since it offers such a comprehensive look and insight into what students need, and really focusing on addressing some of those prerequisite or instructional gaps that we're finding due to the impact of the pandemic, which we are using iReady to address, and it's working out really, really well so far. We're really happy with some of the data that we're currently seeing come in. The reporting is also really user-friendly. There are many reports to look at to help us and also the teachers analyze the student growth at a really granular level, which is great to see. And it provides a lot of detailed action plans to help inform instruction for our students at the elementary level. So having said this, as you can imagine, we do have some state data to speak to, but we really value the local assessments that we use. It gives us some really great data, really great growth and consistency that we can use moving forward as we use a lot of this data to inform our instruction. So I'm going to speak first to some of the elementary reading data. So this slide shows student growth in reading for grades 1 through 5 from the fall to spring, iReady diagnostics from last year. We were happy with the growth students made during such a challenging year, as you can imagine, with remote and hybrid instruction. And we know our teachers worked really, really hard to provide that good instruction, and we are happy that students made progress. And I think Dr. Zuckerman also alluded to this, but so much of our data that we have analyzed and looked through and sifted through has really helped us to inform our 3 to 5 year plan as we really prioritize standards and really look to see how we can help teachers address the student needs and really address those prerequisite skills and instructional gaps that we may have seen due to the impact of the pandemic. This graph, which was provided actually by iReady and Curriculum Associates, which created iReady, shows that not only did our students, not only did they not experience a summer loss in reading, but they actually showed growth for the incoming 2nd, 3rd, and 4th graders from the spring to fall of 2021. And we also have a similar slide to math that we'll look at in a minute. And both Maureen and I were very curious to see how the impact, there's a lot of research on this summer, learning loss specifically in math. So we were really curious to see how students did over the summer. We put together, which I'll speak to in a little bit, a couple opportunities for students to continue their learning over the summer. And we were really happy to see that we didn't see much learning loss from those summer months. So students were continuing to engage in opportunities to learn and grow, and that was great to see.
Kristen, what was the level of participation in that summer?
That's a really good question. We looked at some of the stats that we were able to pull from the Google site, and it didn't show how many times, but it showed we had over 50%, at least in K6, at least go to the site at least once over the summer. So that could have been multiple times, it could have been just once to look it over. So that's a great question because the stats of how often they're going and particularly maybe what activities they're choosing. We had a variety of thought-provoking and challenging activities, a lot that we really tried to address with the 21st century, thinking skills, STEAM activities. It would be great to see specifically what activities were maybe more popular than others. So we're proud of that website, and we're hoping to continue to do it even, if things change. All right, this particular graph shows the percent of students who fell into each category of proficiency on the fall iReady reading diagnostic. Oh, thank you. Stay close. For each grade, 1st through 6th, we are compared to both historic national norms, which you'll see, and also current national norms. And the kindergarten students just took the diagnostic actually for the first time this winter, so that's why you won't see kindergarten represented on there.
slides, if I can just say one thing. Now, does this mean that, like, there's a lot of red on that slide? Does that mean that we're happy where things are? No, absolutely not. We can always do better. And I think, and we absolutely are working towards that. But this is where we are right now, so this is where we're looking to grow. One of the great things, as Kristen alluded to about iReady, is that the pre and post and also the mid-year data. So we can have benchmarks so we can monitor how the students are going throughout the year and how their growth is going. So if we have to make adjustments, we don't have to wait until the end of the year. We can kind of see that as we're progressing so we can hopefully meet their needs throughout the year regardless of their situation.
Just one question, and I'm not sure if this is something that you're going to talk about. The digital divide, where we have our black and brown families who have a technology gap. And perhaps you can conclude the students don't have the help at home, and certainly they may not have the support that they need. How are we meeting their needs if we're just relying upon a technology-based program? What are we doing in order to ensure that our students succeed given where we are?
A couple things. I'd like to just address a couple of them. One, I believe right during the March 2020 time, we did take into account that there would be that divide of families having opportunities to learn about some of the remote resources that we did have available. We did create actually 2 different Google sites, a family academy for remote learning. And we also created one for teachers as well, but it had a plethora of different videos and different websites and all kinds of tools that could really help some families navigate some of that. So I don't think that was one way that we tried to address it. And do you want to?
So during as Kristen was alluding to, as of from March of 2020, we actually provided with every family that did not have a device. Mm-hmm. Unless those students have moved out of the district, those devices have not been collected as of yet. So then those students still have access to those devices at home. Now, does that answer the question as far as the familiarity with the families on using that device? No. But it means that the students have access to the device when they're not in school. We also have a program, Comcast Essentials program, which we partner with Comcast to be able to provide internet accessibility within the homes of families that may have that need. With that being said, the assessments here that we're talking about today are conducted in school. So then the teachers are able to work with the students to be able to make sure that they understand what to do and how to successfully complete that assessment. We do have a number of things online, from videos on how-to videos for the families. We have instructions that they can print online, but it may be something that we can do even a better job on, even having classes for the families to be able to learn how to best work with their children on the online activities. So that is something that we could possibly look into even further.
And also, just another thing to add too, we want to be mindful that there's a lot of research on that it could be detrimental if we're overusing the program. So of course, nothing replaces a teacher. So we're very mindful. In fact, with iReady, the statistics that they have collected over the last few years has shown that between 30 and 49 minutes is kind of that sweet spot a week to have that exposure on an online software program like iReady, and that's where the most growth can come. So we're also trying to be really mindful of not overusing these great online resources that we have, and we know, like I said, nothing can replace a teacher. So it's really about creating that balance and making sure that, this is also one data point, so taking all the different data points into consideration when informing our instruction. So I got to keep moving. Okay, so just one slide for some of our Dreambox data, because we are currently using iReady for math, partly for consistency with reading. Also, one thing that Dreambox doesn't have is those diagnostics 3 times a year that iReady does. But I did want to highlight one great thing. One of the reasons we did use Dreambox last year was because although there isn't a ton of research on how to teach during a pandemic and how to do remote learning perfectly, there was a lot of research to support the importance of formative assessment during remote learning and constantly collecting that real-time data and then using that to pivot and make those tweaks in your instruction to really differentiate and meet the needs of your students. So Dreambox really helped with that. And so what you'll see just briefly on this graph is just the 3 different colors are the at, below, and above grade level. So at any one time, a student, a first grade student, could have been working on grade level content, but also have exposure to above grade level content, and also have exposure to some of the prerequisite or instruction, or some of those gaps that they might have that are preventing them from being successful with that grade level data, or that grade level content, excuse me. So that was one thing that was great about Dreambox, and I just wanted to highlight that there's many students that were working in multiple grade levels actually throughout those modules, so it was addressing some of those instructional gaps. I promise I'm almost done. This is the last one. We could talk about math all night, though, I'm sure. This particular slide describes the median scale score in spring of 21 compared to the median scale score in the fall of 21 by grade level. So the fact that we made the decision to move forward with using iReady for Math as well, iReady allowed us to do a spring administration. So we were able to actually, once again, this slide you saw a little while ago for reading, we were really curious, I was very curious to see how much learning was either lost or gained over the summer, specifically in math. So this does show that there was a slight, I think it was a three median scale scores of a drop, but for the most part, it wasn't as significant as the research that I've read over the years. So I'm happy that, like I had mentioned, the summer learning portal that we created and some of the activities that students had access to over the summer hopefully were engaging. They were able to use iReady. They were able to use Dreambox. So there were some great STEAM activities. So hopefully that helped with preventing some of the loss that could have been more significant. So I definitely wanted to highlight that. And I think before I turn it over, I just want to highlight one more thing. We are working really, really, really hard on that 3 to 5 year plan and prioritizing standards and really keeping in mind that the prerequisites and those instructional gaps need to be addressed, and that's part of our plan, and that's really, we're taking this data and making those informed decisions based on that. So I'll turn it over. I think, Mary, you might be next.
Sure.
Good luck.
Get the power. Oh, wow. Hi, everybody. I'm Mary Pancoast, and I'm the supervisor of English, English as a second language, world language, and social studies. And I am so excited to talk about state testing. As Andrew mentioned, we did the Start Strong Fall 2021 administration. The students were tested on, it was a shorter test than the NJ but it was still similar to what they've had on the NJ Students were tested on the year previous. So if you're a 9th grader, you were tested on the 8th grade standards for my department area as well, for right now. But I'll show you some of the things that we learned from our Fall Start Strong administration. So we got a score report. Typically for the NJ it's a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. For this one, it's 3, 2, and 1. This particular report was sent to parents at the beginning of January so that they could see how their child was doing. As Dr. Zuckerman mentioned, the test was administered in October. So it's really just kind of a touchstone as to where are we at the beginning of the school year, coming out of this pandemic, not having had a standardized test since 2019. So this gave us some data, it's some information, but in combination with the local data that we're using and some of the information that Yvette Panasowicz will share later on, and our students' grades, it helps inform some of our decisions, especially up here at the high school, as we're making recommendations for classes this year. All right, so I'm going to start with science. This is a sample of what we saw previously for the NJ for science for grade 5. It's very specific. Ask kids to do a couple of different things there. So they're reading, they're applying some of their math concepts. There is a standardized expectation of what happens in science for grades 5. So keep that in mind for a second. When we go to our scores, our 6th grade is that test of the 5th grade science standards. 9th and 12th grades are a test of the 8th grade and the 11th grade standards. So to that for a moment. There's a standardized expectation for 5th grade. There's a grade band for science for grades 6, 7, and 8. Those 9th grade students could have been assessed on something that they learned in 6th grade 3 years ago. We don't know when in the sequence what the students were actually tested on. The same thing applies for our seniors. The only requirement that the state of New Jersey has for science is that they need 3 years of a lab science, and one of those 3 years has to be biology. Was biology on the test? Probably. Was chemistry on the test? Might have been. We don't know exactly what was on that test and if our students had ever enrolled in that class. There's a series of physics questions and the students took environmental science, they're not going to be able to answer those physics questions effectively. The mathematics is also done by grade and at the upper levels by multi-grade classes. So you can see there's expectations in 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. The students were tested at level. The 7th grade and the 6th grade classes include the accelerated classes. 8th grade is only the students who are enrolled in 8th grade math. Algebra 1, that score is reflective of students enrolled in grades 8 through 11. The geometry and the Algebra 2 scores comprise students enrolled in grades 9 through 12. In English, it's the 3rd grade standards were tested on the 4th grade level. So our students got progressively, as they get on in English a little bit, they understand a little bit more each year. You can see progressively we get a little bit better each year, all the way up to 10th grade, where we had 84% of our students getting a level 2 or a level 3 on the test. Typically, the English test has 3 writing sections. This test did not have a writing section. It was just informational text and literature, and that was it. A little bit of fiction. I also have the pleasure of talking about the WIDA access for ELLs and how our current and former ELLs performed on state testing. So the access test is given to our English language learners every single year. It measures their progress in their acquisition of English. The chart that you see here is the grade bands of the test. The test had to be administered in person. So last year for the, yeah, it was the only test that had to be administered in person. So last year, for the first time ever, the state provided an option for our English language learners and their families. They could decline or opt out of the test, especially since the governor said last year that students could elect to be virtual for the entire year. Every family was contacted, especially our virtual families, and not all students participated in the test. Some of them declined the test. So as you'll see, 100% of our kindergartners participated in the test, but for grades 1 to 3, only 67% of our students enrolled in the program participated in the test. Students are on that band up there from 1 going all the way up to 6. I put the gold star in between 4 and 5 because that's the magic number of 4.5 is their exit score. We expect our students to demonstrate progress every year at like a half of a point each year. So we look for our students who are getting a 3 or above, so they're showing progress in their levels of English acquisition as they go through. And our numbers are pretty decent, assuming that many of our kindergartners have never been in school before or enrolled in school. A quarter of them scored over a 3 and above after only 1 year of instruction. So I'm pretty proud of that number. Our Start Strong performance, as far as the state was concerned, where it says current ELL, that's any student who's an English language learner who's enrolled in our program. So the student could be enrolled for 4 years and take the test and be labeled a current ELL, or they could have just arrived in the country April 30th of last year, and the state is going to give them a test on a whole year that they didn't participate in. Having said that, our students did pretty well, getting 30% of students at a level 2 or 3 on that Start Strong test in English and close to that in math. When it says former ELL, after students leave our program, we track them for 4 years, and you can see that their growth in the state level standards is exponential. When they leave, they double their score. And again, that's representative of students who have left the program 1 year to they've left the program 4 years ago, and we're just keeping an eye on them. Coming soon, we have spring testing, and we are so excited. As Dr. Zuckerman mentioned earlier, the English and Math New Jersey GPA is coming up. Ooh, it's next month, March 14th. Yay! So we'll be administering that then. This is our first time administering the test. They just released sample questions 2 weeks ago. I shared them with my staff. We're practicing the sample questions in some of our classes. The New Jersey Student Learning Assessments this year has changed. It's for grades 3 to 9 instead of grades 3 to 10. And for science, it's back down to grades 5, 8, and 11. And access for ELLs, our window opens next Monday, February 14th. We're going to start testing grades K to 12, so we're excited about that. And now, to talk about some more global testing is Ms. Panasevich.
Hi, thanks for coming tonight. We're almost to the end with the assessment presentation, so just hold on. We're going to be brief though, right? All right, so I'm Yvette Panasevich. I'm the supervisor for math and science, grades 7 through 12, and art K-12. And I'm here to talk to you about our global testing. So this is our AP, or our advanced placement courses. For those of you that may not know, advanced placement is a national program or a series of courses offered by the College Board. Students have the potential to earn college credit while in high school based on their performance on the College Board exam. Students register for these exams in the fall. Scores are reported using a scale of 1 through 5, and typically scores of 3, 4, or 5 are accepted by colleges for credit. The catch is the credit is awarded by the college. They have full control of that. High schools do not determine if credits will be earned regardless of their performance scores. Historically, the exams have been paper pencil administered in school, but the College Board made many changes in 2020, administration that flowed into the 2021 school year. The 2021 test administration noted social distancing, hybrid and remote instruction, and took that into consideration when scheduling the test globally. Because of this, many of the scores were administered remotely so that hybrid and remote students could participate in the exams. For 2022, what we know about AP exams are, we're going back to paper and pencil. The exams will occur in the first 2 weeks of May, as they typically do, but the College Board will continue to monitor global, national, and local health conditions, putting the health and safety of students first. If there are widespread school closures in the spring of 2022, the College Board will provide options similar to 2021. So there's some background for you. And now I'm going to share some AP data with you for the courses and tests that Lawrence students have taken pre and post-pandemic. Regardless of how the test was administered, scores were always reported on the scale of 1 through 5. Here we go. So here we're looking at students, or the percentage of students who earn scores of 3 or better. We chose 3 or better because those are the scores that could potentially earn college credit. As you can see when you look at these numbers, The 2019 scores, the standard paper pencil scores, are a bit higher, but that trend is not unique to Lawrence. It's a trend that was seen everywhere, and our scores are very respectable. I just want to note that the English Lit and Comp, we had one student that took that test that didn't reach the milestone of a 3 or better, unfortunately, and we had no student that chose to take the Spanish test in both 19 and 21. So on our next slide, we happen to get scores of how well Lawrence students do against other schools in New Jersey, as well as at a global level. So every student around the world that took that test. And as you can see by the data that's represented here, that in the areas for those courses listed, Lawrence students are outperforming our New Jersey partners, as well as at the global level. We're now going to go back and look at math, science, and art. Again, the paper pencil administration versus the online administration in 2021. The trend of scoring better or higher on the 2019 score prevails for these subject areas as well. So we have that. My comments are for the next slide, I'm sorry. So here we go comparing our Lawrence students, who we're very proud of, to New Jersey and global. As you can see, we're extremely competitive in these particular courses as well. In spring of 2019, our AP Computer Science A was our maiden voyage. It was the first year that we offered that particular course and how our students fared. In 2021, it was the first year that we offered computer science principles. So again, we can see how our students compared in the maiden voyage of that particular course. And I just want to point out that our drawing courses, we had one student take that assessment in 2019. So we put all our eggs in one basket for that particular test, but it proved to be beneficial to us. So that's our AP scores, again, for our students enrolled in college-level courses while here at the high school, and we're very proud of all of their accomplishments. And I'm going to turn it over now to Dr. Zuckerman.
Just one question, and thank
Sure.
you for the presentation. How many students participate in AP classes during the year?
I thought you were going to ask how many students took the test, and I had a ballpark on that one. As far as the number of students that, I can certainly get you that information for the number of students that participate in the class, and also those that are registered to take the assessment as well.
Okay.
We also have many students that are in multiple AP classes.
Yes.
So when we give that number, some students will be represented multiple times in that data as well.
And believe me, I've been through it, so I'm glad those days are over at the Johnson household. But,
Thank you.
So I'm not going to speak about this evening, but Dr. Casey, maybe I can come back at a future meeting. We do also have dual enrollment classes that we partner with some of our local universities so students can get high school and college classes, or college credits for. And we're actually looking to, Dr. Adam, myself, and the supervisors have been meeting with those universities to increase that offering. And I'm happy to come back at a future meeting to talk about the difference and also what we're looking to do moving forward with that. Lastly, I'm going to talk to you about the graduation rate. As I do, I want you to understand New Jersey uses what's called a 4-year graduation rate to measure to determine the percentage of students who graduate from a local high school. So the students last year that graduated in 2021, they had 4 years to be able to graduate. So they started in September of 2017, and then they graduated in June of 2021. If they exceeded that time for whatever reason, then they are not counted towards graduation even if they may take a summer course, and then they achieve graduation. If they were ill, and then they didn't meet whatever time requirements, they do not count. If they're in our Quest program, and they extend, and they stay in the high school until they're of age 21, they do not count towards our graduation rate. So there's a variety of things. Last year, we had 12 students that did not count towards our graduation rate. 4 transferred out of district, and they said they were going to enroll in a high school, and they did not, so they're unverified. And we had 8 students who did not meet that timeline for whatever reason. In a typical year, we have 8 or 9 students that do that. So we're about 3 or 4 students higher than what we typically are. And with the pandemic, I can understand some of that. However, that is the reason on the screen why we went from a 96% average, or 97 the prior year, to a 94. It's those 4 extra students that we had. Now, of those students, we had 6 that are in our Quest program. And so the other 2 have worked over the summer, and they have since achieved graduation status. So then we just, again, as we said before, we work with each individual child to be able to achieve whatever they need to help them be successful. With that being said, I know we went long, so much for the abbreviated version. If anybody has any questions, or as I said, I'm happy to take any questions at a later time, go over anything in more depth, whether from the Board of Education or anybody from the community as well.
Thank you.
Great. I'd like to thank you all very much. Dr. Casey, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Am I turning it over to you or Mr. Thompson?
I think he'll go in one of the committee reports. He'll need it sooner or later.
You got it.
And thank you, Andrew, and the team for presenting that tonight. It was
Yeah, thank you.
valuable information, and I know where it's going from here, so well done.
Okay.
I think he was going to go under the committee report for equity.
Okay. Well, with that being said, then we are on now to Board Secretary's report.
Hank, have you got me queued up? Not a problem. Yes, I'll come.
You needed it next. I said you needed it next.
Getting those steps in.
So while we're doing this, I'm reminded of something that one of our board members once said. And he said, one of our jobs is to manage your expectations. And so this is going to be a long presentation. Just kidding. It's about 4 slides, and the idea is just to give you an idea of where we are with the budget. So I called it a budget update. It's not quite like weekend update, but here we go. And since this is my favorite slide, or because it's, I think it was Lana Mueller's that she did about 20 years ago. So these kids probably went to these schools, and they're out and in the workforce by now.
I think they look like they're in a hostage situation.
Well, I guess, you know, that did occur to me also. So I just want to give you a little update about what we're doing, and we're working through things right now, and of course any questions you have are very welcome. We could begin by saying, hey, ask me something about the budget, anything. But as we go through this briefly in these 4 slides, is just to bring you up to speed on some things, and then please shout out at any time and interrupt me. So what I wanted to do was give you an overview of where we are in the process of our budget and the building of it. And so you see the appropriations, our 22-23 appropriations, which of course are our spending plan, totaling almost $80 million at $79,577,000. We'll ignore that negative number below there for a minute. The salaries and benefits are typical, upwards of 80% of our proposed budget. That's not atypical for us in any way. We're followed by our out-of-district tuition, some transportation costs, energy, supplies, and so on. So this is our standard budget that you'll see, and of course you see it from me in a variety of ways. You see it from me in this format, which is essentially answering the question, what is being purchased? And of course I also propose it and show you the program budget in terms of what services, meaning regular ed, special ed, child study team guidance, and things of that nature. Off to the right is our revenues. Here's our, at this point, draft revenues. Of course, we're leading with tax levy like we always do. 90% of our budget is funded by it. And you'll see that our revenues do not equal our appropriations. We're at a point right now where our proposed appropriations are $692,000 higher than our budgeted revenues. And what I'd like to remind the board of is that we have a tax levy cap. And so that $72,565,000 you see there, that is with 2% growth and about $192,000 of bank cap inserted into that number. And so right now, it's not something that's unique to us. We're over our cap. And so you may say, well, what's driving our costs? And so we'll go to the next slide and we'll take a look at that. Here's a comparison between years of those major categories and what's happening. Of course, the drivers of our costs are always going to be salaries and benefits. Our typical salary increases are expected to be somewhere in the area of 3%. And since that's upwards salaries alone of about 70% of our budget, the salaries at 3% are 50% higher than our allowed cap, which is 2%. And so we're fortunate, however, that our benefits for year two, second year in a row, are essentially flat. And that's a major, major plus. So we had a decrease in the current year. We were a marginal increase in the year before that. And on composite between prescription and medical, we see about a 1.4% increase. So what you see driving things here right now is indeed, which one's the pointer, Andrew? Is it the asterisk? Okay. It is the asterisk. That number right there is almost entirely comprised of salaries. Also unique to Lawrence Township and not seen in the time I've been here is this number here. It's not that the increase hasn't been there in out-of-district tuition. It has. What's unique about this number is that it's being driven not only by special education, but by charter schools. So in the past, we've had about 2 students out of district, and now we have 10. Now, unique to this situation on this statistic is that I believe 4 of them were move-ins. So they moved in and they registered right into, they already were in a charter school and they continued on. So it's not as if we have flight leaving the school district. We also have a couple state school facilities tuitions in here, which are very expensive as well. And so we're seeing things change in Lawrence Township with respect to our out-of-district kids. And whenever you see out-of-district tuitions increase, you can almost be sure that, well, since Kristen's here with Yvette, you know, there's slope, you know, X and Y. So this would be your independent variable, and here's your dependent variable right here. So as this goes up, this is correlated to it, and it will go up also. Because we've said this before, sometimes a single route will cost us $100,000. And so we're seeing those things. With respect to services right here, this is primarily about $100,000 worth of property casualty insurance, uniquely enough. Not exciting to talk about. Insurance assessments, we're on a roll tonight, right? So overall, what we have is, if we hold our budget down here at the bottom, we look, we say, oh, hey, you've got a $110,000 decrease. Let's back out from the current year just our construction costs, because that's all paid for by a sinking fund, and set things equal. This would be our budget right here for operations. This is our proposed operations budget. This is our increase. Now, this is an interesting phenomenon, and it's not going to get any better, but we will see our way through it for sure. We'll fight through it. Let's go to the next. You saw the 2,295,000 right here. Okay, you'll follow it over to the next slide. It is right here. This is just the difference column as opposed to the absolute number columns. So this is our difference. When we look at our salaries, and we know that this number here is mostly salaries, direct compensation, and some benefits, this is what our tax levy affords with $192,000 of bank cap. That's what BC stands for. So we're just covering our salaries with our tax levy alone, not including any of our other costs that would increase over here. So this is what it means to work with a hard 2% cap in a time of inflation. Now, there are exceptions to the cap. And so there's an enrollment exception, there's a health benefits cost exception, but since we're essentially flat, we're not going to get that. Since 2018, we've decreased about 5% in resident enrollment. Interestingly enough, the number of lunches served in the same time has gone up 42% for this year, by the way. I looked at that because I was watching social media this weekend. Thank you for everybody sending me those links. Right now, this is where we stand, at $692,000 over cap. So what are we going to do about it? Well, we're going to do what we do every year. We're going to look at a combination of decreasing appropriations and increasing revenue, or both. But the good news is, this is not, by any stretch in anywhere in the world, this is not our greatest asset. Our greatest asset that we have is our human resource. And that's not to make light of a budget shortfall in projections, because this can get better. State aid can reduce this. We expect that we'll have one more year of increased state aid, so this number will drop. We expect that our property casualty rates will go down just a little bit. We expect that since we budgeted 6% for transportation increases, we'll be able to renew some of those routes at 2%. And we believe that by the time we see you on March 16th for you to adopt the budget, we'll have this solved. It will not be easy. There'll be some concern, but we'll address it as best we can in keeping things away from the classroom. So with that, we'll wait for more estimates. The state aid numbers come out on February 22nd. We'll adjust accordingly. We'll see you on March 16th. Our budget hearing is on May 4th. And I've spoken too long. Is there anything I can answer for you?
Quick question, Tom. So the additional provisions that we've added in mental health and wellness areas,
yes,
predominantly at the high school, where would we see those increases? Do they show up in services or in salaries and benefits? Or?
Most of that is in the form of federal aid. So where we've addressed mental health, aside from putting our own guidance person in, aside from addressing equity, which we've built into our operational budget and ongoing, and you can see both of those things I can point you out to the exact line number for those. There's like 600 line numbers in our budget. I can put you right to it.
Great.
But just so that people understand, we also spend approximately $200,000 on SAGE counselors. We have a change order on the agenda tonight for another professional service. It's a professional service change order for roughly $55,000. To add more SAGE counseling, we awarded a bid to Brett and DeNovi Associates, upwards of about 150 or just less than that, for BCBA services. We have Playworks in the district right now. And we have one other mental health contract. So we spend a significant sum of money in a very short period of time having to do with addressing mental health concerns. I'm sure that I'm missing something. That's just, I think, 3 or 4.
Tom, if you could just repeat this, in addition to the building-specific programs for whether for mental health or kind of meditation strategies, relaxation, and so on.
What he said, that happens.
Tom's going to yell at me that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that you're seeing our resources are definitely being channeled in that direction. And since most of those things are paid for by federal funds, and those federal funds were earmarked for exactly those things.
So we don't see them in this?
You won't see all of them there. You will see some of them there.
Okay.
So,
makes sense.
Yeah, you'll see a few $100,000. So for example, Sage at $210,000 is built into the guidance services line. That is there. You will see the guidance counselor that we added built into the guidance lines.
Right.
Those are ongoing, so you're probably upwards in composite of $300,000 between those two contracts. I know for sure, and we have some equity work that's going on. That's ongoing. So indeed, you've invested in programs that are ongoing, and they are embedded in the operational budget, not just funded through grants.
Okay.
Okay?
You got it.
All right, well, thank you so much for your time. And it was good to be up here because I can see your faces, and I like that. So if you ever have any questions, please give me a call or email me, and I'd be happy to talk budget.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eldridge.
Thanks, Tom.
And next is just the president's report. I just want to make 3 brief comments or observations. First of all, I want to say a thank you to the parents, students, and teachers for working alongside us in managing through the pandemic. The governor's address earlier this week, as Ross mentioned, we are going to continue to work with, our local health department, the Department of Education, administration, and the CDC. So, and as he mentioned, the number of reportings have gone down significantly. So we thank you because you are working with us to make this happen. The second thing I just wanted to address was for Black History Month is here, and that it's just another tremendous opportunity to learn more about American history and to encourage you to take the opportunity to learn as much as you can from your fellow man through African descent. This is our history, and if nothing else, Google has been doing a great job with their doodles. Today I learned myself about a woman, Toni Stone, who was the first of 3 women to play professional baseball full-time. I had no idea about that, so thank you, Google. And the last thing I just want to also is to say a special thank you to our teachers who do their best with our children and students. If you have a chance, send a note of gratitude and appreciation to our teachers. They have done extraordinary things in the most difficult of circumstances. They are our champions. We must remember that and not lose sight of, because they too are parents of young children, and they are under the same amount of pressure oftentimes and stress as we are. So I just, as a community, I encourage you to, if you have a moment, just send a little note or something. And with that being said, we'll move on to the next item. Thank you. Beginning with committee reports. First one is Community Relations and Legislative Affairs.
Thank you, Madam President. First of all, I would like to say that the presentation that Dr. Kaysen gave about the district's strategic plan is very exciting. Looking forward to the next steps in meeting with the community. We had a meeting on January 27th. We met with our consultants. They laid out an excellent plan, and I'm looking forward to working with the community. The superintendent has indicated that he would like the members of the committee to serve as facilitators once we have our meetings in what I call the field out to the community. So we're looking forward to that. That's exciting. That's all I have to say at this point.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. Now we will move negotiations.
Very brief report. We're actually getting very close to finalizing a new agreement with LAPTA, and so we'll be able to kind of bring that back to the full board for approval. shortly, and I just want to, kind of the ongoing theme that we've had, frankly, with all of our staff members and our unions is just that relationship that we've continued to build, and so we extend our appreciation to the members of LAPTA for working at us, being very, very proactive. The contract doesn't even expire for another 6 months, and we're getting close to finalizing that, and that is really because of the excellent members that we have that work here with us and are willing to be partners. And so we'll just extend our appreciation, and we'll be out with that as soon as we're able to finalize that and get that on our board and agenda for approval.
Thank you very much. And now the next will be the Equity Committee, and I believe we're having Mr. Thompson make a presentation.
Just note for the record that Mr. Thompson and I are twinning this evening with our lack of ties.
I felt good that the button broke and went to put on the tie and it broke. I said, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to present without a tie. I'm like, wait, Kevin. I can be Kevin tonight. So that was good. So my presentation is linking pedagogy, Black History Month, and DEI. And so there's a lot of Black history. We're going to go over it all tonight. It'll be fun. So, and pedagogy, for those, is the things that go into creating spaces where learning can take place. So what teachers do with children, how they treat children, that's all part of pedagogy. And what does that do with going into Black History Month and DEI? Let's go on this quick journey. So this is my favorite quote. I've said it before, but we can, whenever and wherever we choose, successfully teach all children whose schooling is of interest to us. We already know more than we need to do this. Whether we do it or not must finally depend on how we feel about the fact that we have not done it so far. The point that I like is we already know more than we need to know. We know what to do. We just have to do it. And so what do we know? We know that meaningful and relevant topics are important. It's important for children to feel like they're part of that learning, the concepts that are in the world around them, that we're linking that learning to their experiences and relate it to what they are doing in their lives. And then that makes the lessons more relevant, more meaningful. It makes them stay engaged. And when they're engaged, they're more likely to persist through academic struggles, along with earning higher standardized test scores. So that means the C&I department can come up here and talk about, we're doing great because we're creating these spaces where all children can learn, and we know how to do that. And we know we have to make it meaningful. And so that leads us to Negro History Week and Black History Month. In 1926, Carter G. Woodson and the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History announced that the second week in February would be Negro History Week. That week included both Frederick Douglass's birthday and Abraham Lincoln's birthday. These dates at the time were widely celebrated in Black communities. In 1969, on the campus of Kent State, Black educators and the Black United Students Organization proposed Black History Month. In 1970, Black History Month took place on the campus of Kent State University. 6 years later, in 1976, during the United States Bicentennial, President Gerald Ford recognized Black History Month. And so we're almost 100 years removed from Black History Week, almost 50 years removed from Black History Month, and we're moving into what we call diversity, equity, and inclusion. And there's quotes that lead to that. So those that have no record of what their forebears have accomplished lose the inspiration which comes from teaching of biography and history. If the people you learn about do not look and reflect who and what you are, many times you lose focus and interest in those things. President Gerald Ford has seized the opportunity to honor too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. Let our children know and see the people that look like them, have the same cultures and interests that they have. And so that was started. So where are we going? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. At the time that Carter G. Woodson started Negro History Week, the country was really probably black and white. And so that's why he started. However, as we moved from that point towards where we are now, there are people that have made quotes that actually help us get to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I picked 4 of those quotes, one by Morgan Freeman, Maya Angelou, Angela Davis, and Wilma Rudolph. So Morgan Freeman said, I don't want Black History Month. Black history is American history. And people have used that quote to say there shouldn't be a Black History Month. We don't need to just celebrate Black history. He meant what we need to do is get in our schools and make sure that Black history and Black folks and things that have to do with Black Americans is infused throughout all of our subject areas. And then we've extended that in DEI to all identities. There shouldn't be a child sitting in the class and never hear about who they are and their accomplishments in context to that content. And so that's what Morgan Freeman is talking about. Maya Angelou said, won't it be wonderful in Black history, Native American history, Jewish history, and all of history is taught from one book, just US history. So that means taking what we know about history, and then we're going to extend it to all content areas and put what we have in the United States into those textbooks and into that learning. And Angela Davis said we have to talk about liberating minds as well as society. When we talk about liberation, liberating the mind is breaking free from the ideas of the past about marginalized people and groups, by all people and groups. By ideas, we are speaking of cognitive ability, moral character, pain threshold, and many other areas that support the poor treatment of groups and individuals who are marginalized. So Black history is not just for Black students. It's for all students, so that we can recognize, wow, everyone has achieved, everyone has worked to build what we call the United States of America, and therefore everyone is valued. And then Wilma Rudolph said, never underestimate the power of dreams and the influence of the human spirit. We are all the same in this notion. The potential for greatness lives within us. I learned about dreams that when you dream, if you dream of a person, your brain does not make that face up. You've had to encounter that face in some way or manner. It could be a quick pass by in the supermarket, but you've seen the person in that dream, at least that face. We don't make them up. And so I link that to our dreams that our children have. They have to see their face and the accomplishments of people that look like them so they can dream that they can become those things. If they don't ever see a teacher that looks like them or someone in their family, they may not dream that they can become a teacher. If they don't see that they can be a scientist because they see a picture of a scientist, they may not believe that they can become that. So some of our students have those families that inspire them and keep them moving forward. But the ones that don't, we're here for. The educators in Lawrence Township Public Schools, we're the ones that are supposed to make sure they have the foundation for those dreams. And so Dr. King had a dream, and he had a dream after Carter G. Woodson believed that we should emphasize not Negro history, but Negroes in history. What we need not is a history of selected races or nations, but the history of the world, void of national bias, race hate, or religious prejudice. Carter G. Woodson was advocating for what diversity, equity, and inclusion is asking for, and that is ridding school systems of academic predictability based upon identity by doing what we already know how to do. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Thompson, for that presentation. Good. And now we will move to guidance and mental health.
Michelle Bowes is not here.
Oh,
Does
sorry,
anyone
Michelle
else have a
Bowes,
report?
Yes.
Actually,
Is
they're
there anyone
meeting,
else?
Guidance and Mental Health, I believe, is meeting this week. No, next week.
I think it's next week.
At 8:30, yeah, next week.
Okay. So with that, let me just begin with the liaison reports. First will be the New Jersey School Board Association.
Okay. On January 27th, 7 to 9 p.m., Mercer County School Boards had their meeting, and Michelle Kay was there, Pepper and Patricia. I thank you three ladies for attending. And at every meeting, we have updates of what's going on, so I'll take care of the legislation portion, if you noticed in our agenda. They have, first order of business was the executive director for New Jersey School Boards, Larry Feinsod, is going to retire July 1st. He has served for 10 years, and the search for the next executive director is going to begin shortly. The next type of information that they put out, there are new resources for new school board members. If you go to the NJSBA website, click all the way down on the menu, you'll see that there are at least 3 different resources for new board members. And that doesn't preclude any of us who have been on the board for a while to review any of the topics. I've gone to several of them just to kind of update and get stuff going. Jesse Adams then did a report, field service, again about new members and newly re-elected member training that we have to do. And I actually am signed up for February 16th, next training. It's online, 2 hours, and I think the one we're going to go to is the legal one. So I know, Kevin, you and I usually do those things together. And we're in Atlantic City, but I'm going to do it online this year. Legislative update. These were bills that were signed into law. If you all take a look when you get this, and I'm sure, I don't know, maybe Rob, you haven't gotten yours back yet. There are school board notes that are mailed. On that inside page, there's a legislative update. So you can take a look at these too. So I'll just quickly go over some of them. These bills were signed into law, and the new laws went into effect immediately upon the governor's signature. And one of the bills was addressing CTI teacher shortages. It eliminates the requirement to pass basic skills tests to become a career technical education teacher. Wellness grant was passed, hiring retired teachers. We've talked about that in the past also. It's only a 2-year employment, and they don't have to re-enroll in the pension system. Asian American heritage. They want to promote implementation of historical, cultural, educational programs concerning people Asian American descent in New Jersey. Board of Ed school representative, student representative. This bill requires at least 1 student representative will be appointed for each school board, grades 9 through 12, and the student will be selected by student body. And a representative shall attend all meetings. We kind of take care of that by the awesome presentation that our students do for us every month. District website accessibility. The bill requires websites and web services of school districts to be accessible to persons with disabilities by establishing certain accessibility standards. And New Jersey School Boards is continuing to advocate for state funding to offset the district costs in implementing this new website requirement. School safety drills, it aims to ensure students' well-being during a school safety security drill, taking measures to make sure the children understand what's going on so that they feel safe, and parents are to be notified, which we do every month in our board agenda. And then, let's see, the next one was, the topic for that meeting was inherent bias, which was kind of interesting because a lot of the topics were just presented. Vincent DeLuca is the educator in residence for New Jersey School Boards, and his discussion started with minority, majority project. AP classes were looked into with looking at the implicit bias lens. And then there was a really interesting inventory that anyone can take. And it's the Harvard Education Implicit Test. And it's really an interesting test. If you haven't taken it, I can forward you the link to it. And it's an eye-opening experience. And then he discussed ways that we can grow and advance. And we're doing a lot of them with professional learning, all staff members, adopting a mindset, which clearly we're stepping up. And thank you so much, Clifford, for your help with that. And then we looked at 19 inherent bias reading suggestions, which I could be happy to forward to anybody if you'd like to take a look at those. I attended Bergen County Board meeting and the relationship between Board of Education members and the superintendent. And the culmination of that whole thing was that we as board members, we sit here at the board meeting, it looks like we just yes, 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 everything. But what's going on behind the scenes are our committee meetings. That's where we really glean information about what it is you're hearing us say yes for. And it takes a lot of time. Some of the meetings, you'll notice we're saying how long we are in the meetings. And that's what goes on. We ask the questions, we dig, we get insight from other board members. And basically what they're saying is the relationship between the superintendent and we board members is a trust issue. And we make that issue work because of those questions. We were voted to represent you, the community. And that's the time that we as board members ask those deep questions. So you may think that we're here at a board meeting and we haven't done our work, but that's really where it works. And if the trust isn't there, that's when we as a board have to say, maybe we're missing the mark. And that was a really good, they gave us scenarios to go through, and most of them were challenging, so I can share that too. And then I went to another one at Middlesex, and it was how comprehensive high schools can prepare students to enter the workforce. And let me zip over, sorry guys, I'm trying to go quickly. A Facebook Live one, the importance of county meetings. Any of these are available if you go to NJSBA, Facebook Live sessions. They're really exciting because there are people from all over the state of New Jersey. And the topics are variables that you can grow, learn, and attend. Best practices for school board vacancies was this morning. And we've, fortunately or unfortunately, had to fill some vacancies. Actually, Kevin and I started out on the board that way. And it was nice to know that we have followed all the guidelines with that. So if you want to take a peek at that, that's another one you can go online. Last thing, New Jersey School Boards is having their spring symposium. It's a virtual two-day event, April 26th through the 27th. Topics: public relations, school law, professional development, educational initiatives available in local communities, school district technology, sustainability, advocacy, professional development for staff. You can register online. I'll just jump to LTEF because that's next on the agenda, if that's okay.
Thank you, yes, please.
As you saw tonight, how exciting was that? To see Dr. Fisher do her presentation at LTEF Executive Board. And oh my goodness, Dr. Zuckerman, you were a champion there. He answered all the questions. It's just a real good community experience to hear that the kids wrote the questions, did surveys, went out to all the principal, vice principal, took those steps. That's why I want to go watch them at town council. What a great civic lesson they're learning, isn't it? So I'm really proud of them. So that was fun about the winter grants. And they, as you know, handbag bingo. Gosh, this thing is squishing my nose. Sorry, it sounds like I'm talking underwater. Handbag bingo is postponed till April 22nd. And you also heard about the reminder for spring grants due on Valentine's Day, February 14th. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for that
Sorry.
presentation. No, it's all very important information we have to share. Okay, next we have Town Council.
Yes, Madam President. Unfortunately, last week was the meeting, and I was spending some time with my mother in Georgia. So I will update the board on the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Next is the Lawrence Township Growth and Redevelopment. I attended that meeting yesterday evening, February 8th at 7 p.m. at Town Hall. It was my first meeting, and basically for that particular meeting, they were electing the chair and vice chair of the committee and discussing a new business manual that is being developed for businesses that are coming into Lawrence to help them through the business process, dealing with planning, zoning, and all of the details and licenses that are needed for new owners in the township. So that was pretty much the majority of the meeting. It was discussion of just how this manual is going to come into play and be informative for new businesses in the town. Okay, and then next is direct link.
We did not meet.
Okay, and then next is partnership, and that is also myself, and that was the ECV partnership met on January 20th. In attendance were Nicole Cody, Tom Wilford, Fred Vereen Jr., Michelle Cash, Clifton Thompson, Laura Waters, and Dr. Zuckerman, and myself. We met basically to give a new update on what was going on with regards to the distributing of laptops, which were helpful doing the virtual learning in the first week of January. Talked about the strategic plan that is going to come to the community. There may be an event discussing the strategic plan. Discuss the hiring of a new learning coach for grades 4 through 8. Megan Cabell, she's a teacher at LES with a special ed background. Discuss transportation, the need for social and emotional support. They've piloted a program with Dress for Success, where Lawrence High School students are participating and will be learning job skills and job readiness. Some of the key themes also that were talked about were the teachers, the ECV staff, parents, and students, flexibility of program and connection to increase family participation. Also mentioned was the supportiveness of the district during the pandemic, and the iReady data is also something that they are going to be looking at with parental permissions to review the information. iReady, which Dr. Zuckerman presented on to this evening, they will also be taking a look at it, as Mr. Johnson had also asked about the children of the program of the Every Child's Value. So that was pretty much it. And next is Mercer County VOTEC.
VOTEC is holding their general advisory meeting tomorrow. I'm not able to go, but Rob Pluta is going to make his best effort to cover for us. So we'll be able to, and regardless if not, they'll be sending us minutes, so I'll be able to update later.
Okay, thank you very much. And next is special education.
Yes, as Dr. Kaysen mentioned, the Special Education Parent Advisory Group, or the CPAG, met on January 18th for their strategic planning meeting. They discussed equity, health and wellness, and student achievement, and got a lot of really great parental feedback. In terms of equity, parents and administrators discussed providing resources in other languages, including written and training materials. Parents requested more reverse inclusion opportunities and for more equitable services for our special education students. In terms of student achievement, parents asked for more programs to be available to our students and a better continuity of these programs. So for them to be available from the pre-K through 3 level all the way through high school. They also would like more resources put towards supporting teachers in differentiating instruction and more supports for parents in working on these programs and things at home. In terms of health and wellness, parents express approval and really thank the nurses for the way that they have handled the COVID-19 pandemic. They asked for more opportunities for yoga and mindfulness in special education. They would also like to see a greater focus on mental health, specifically regarding the pandemic and the accompanying emotional trauma. The CPAG will set up another parent meeting in the near future, and they are also starting a monthly newsletter. And that's it.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is review of communications. Is there anything for communication?
There is, Mr. Elch, do you want to?
Yes, I sent home a letter to you today from the families of Federal Hill and Twin Meadows, and it was regarding transportation and reinstating a bus. This community is about 1.9 miles out, a little somewhere in that range. And so they're petitioning to have the bus reinstated because they're just under the mileage. This was brought up in our Finance Committee, and it was discussed with respect to the feasibility of doing that right now with resources that we don't have. However, it doesn't mean that we can't look into other ways. And so starting today, I was looking into see if we had buses that were going past that neighborhood so that we could at least fill seats if we needed to. The other idea came out of our Finance Committee meeting where Dr. King had spoken to the idea of perhaps petitioning legislators to provide a cap exception for that type of situation, which once existed for the cost of transportation. It was done away with at least a dozen years ago. But I don't know if that'll become more of a reality now, given inflation. But nevertheless, we'll revisit this topic.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. And with that, this is the first opportunity for public input. Yes.
You're on.
Hi, I'm Tracy McMahon, 20 Dara Lane. Just a quick thing. I know you don't want to talk about masks because you're probably sick of it, but the hypocrisy of saying we can only have so many kids on a bus, those big buses, because of transportation, you can't have them, but you can shove 15 to 20 high school girl teams from the basketball team on a tiny bus for away games. It's pretty not really going what you're saying. We can only have so many on a big bus, but you can shove all those girls on a little bus for away games. And then West Windsor shows up on an A1 limousine bus. Kind of sad. And it's been numerous times. And then those same girls take off their masks to go play games, you know, or any of the indoor sports right now. Wrestling, all of them. They're all taking off their masks. So hopefully when March 7th comes, you let the parents have a choice what they want to do with their kids. Just as they had the choice to get vaccinated or not. Going back to the high school sports girls. The girls' basketball high school team, they didn't have enough uniforms this year. They've had to have past uniforms. They don't match. Some of them had to get altered from privately because they don't fit. I don't know what the boys did, but I'm sure it wasn't like how the girls were treated. Another thing is, their crossing guards by LIS are horrible now. I don't know what happened to the normal people that were there, but there's a new guy. I didn't even know he's a crossing guard. He's holding in his hand the reflective vest, and it's dark out, it's raining out. He's walking kids across with holding the little vest in his hand. Not okay. Sometimes the guy is not even there by where the cars are lined up. I've had to stop and let kids cross on their bikes. So that's an issue, that he's not always there on time when those kids are coming out. And there's buses coming out at all different angles, so that needs to get addressed. There's still kids crossing at Dara Lane and 206.
Could you tell me where at LIS, right across the street from LIS?
When you're
Or
when the
Dara
cars
Lane and
come into the
206.
park, you know, when the cars come in,
Yeah.
there's
That guard.
that guard,
Okay.
he was there for years, the same guy, and now there's no one. So a lot of time, the security guy, I don't know his name, sorry, he has to go out there if he's there on time, but he's, you know, also at the other end guarding traffic, you know what I mean? So the cars can come out. And there's a lot of times there's nobody watching those kids. There's a bunch that ride bikes and cross just the entranceway and across Eggridge Crossing. So there's not always someone there. But I did want to say something good was we've had an incident personally dealing with some bullying at LAS, and I sent an email to Ms. Fisher, and she immediately got back to me, has handled it. It's great, so I felt a little secure when, you know, confident. Here's a, you know, an issue, swiftly taken care of, so commend to her. So, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you guys, all your volunteering, your time. That it's been a crazy pandemic, and we've gotten to this point now. It's 2 years into this pandemic, and Dr. Kaysen, I think you made an announcement at the beginning of this meeting, and I arrived late, so I don't know what variables exactly, Ms. Farmer, you did address the variables that we're gonna hit, but we're 2 years into this now, and much to like Tracy had just said, every opportunity has been given. All your staff is vaccinated. A lot of our kids are vaccinated. And I hope you consider everybody's thinking on this. As far as the masks go, like I said, kids should be given a choice. We've done what we needed to do. These kids are wrestling. These kids are playing basketball. They're hanging out. They're on the buses. What I'm going to do here, and I don't want you to get offended, is I'm going to take my mask off. Because I was in an event last Thursday where the administrators of this particular event spoke to us, and it was odd to me because I was like, wow, that woman's got a pretty smile. And then I said, well, something's different here. And I wasn't there to see the woman's pretty smile or the gentleman that was orchestrating everything. I was there to see the smiling kids' faces. These kids were given the opportunity after 2 years to finally sing in front of everybody, and I didn't get to see their smiling faces. We're to the point now where I hope you give everybody these choices. I was very angry and highly upset that for 40 minutes I watched the two administrators speak like I'm doing freely without the mask, with plenty of people to correct. Last time someone took their mask here at this meeting, you all were quick to tell her to put her mask back on because we're not doing this. I just did it because I'm reciprocating what I'm seeing. All right, the perception here is we want the mask on, but the reality is there's a lot of flaws in what we're doing. I mean, half of you are not being wearing the correct mask, according to the CDC. Right now, they're not even advocating the paper masks or the cloth masks. So let's do what's right here. Let's take everybody's feelings into, not feelings, but let's be equitable in everybody's perspective. I mean, if my kid wants to wear a mask, great. If he doesn't want a mask up, the governor has taken the ban off. He actually even said, I think he was just quoted as saying that COVID is not going away and we need to learn how to deal with it. I think we've turned that corner where we all need to learn how to work with it. And if the governor has lifted the masks, let's give everybody the respective amount of time. Okay.
Yep.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public input? Okay.
No,
Okay, okay, move on. Board discussion or action items, we don't have any, right?
No.
No, okay. If we could have now from the Personnel Committee report.
Okay. We did meet February 2nd, 8:15 to 9:35. In attendance was Ross, Sean, Patricia, Kevin, Pepper, and myself. We discussed open positions at the elementary school. There are special positions rather open at the elementary, for special ed at LES, LIS, LMS, Health, and PE, which you'll notice in today's agenda was filled. High school English, maintenance for custodian, Several great candidates have applied, and some of them you'll see on the agenda have already been hired too. Substitute application revisions. We heard that the application was lengthy due to some of the requirements, so adjustments have been made to streamline, to onboard more people and make it easier for us to get substitutes. Staff meetings, round 2, we're reviewing staff needs with each of our buildings for the 22-23 school year. NJ DOE data certification job code is being looked at by CJ Pride Committee, working with certification information to identify the greatest areas of needs for our education program providers. Job fairs, TC&J and CJ Pride. We're in the planning stages for looking at a job fair, which will be jointly hosted by member districts. Policy discussions and recommendations. We looked at policy on conflict of interest, and no changes were suggested. Okay, and on today's agenda, you will find a resignation, appointments for non-certificated staff members, EDPs, destination teachers, mentors, substitutes, sub-assistants, student support services, volunteers at LHS and LMS. You'll also see approvals for unpaid sick absences, transfers, student tech for the district media center position. And you will see P17, retirement for Alice Keffer. Just a quick side note, I took grad school classes with Alice. She did 33 years of service for Lawrence Township. She's a kind, caring person, very dedicated from day one in providing excellent education to every student she's taught during her tenure here in Lawrence. Alice, along with a few other educators, as I said, drove to grad school together, and we supported each other in obtaining our master's degrees together. She was an excellent teacher, helper, and just a fantastic person. I'm so happy for Alice, but sad for Lawrence. We're losing a phenomenal educator, wishing her lots of good health and much happiness in her retirement. And with that, I'd like to move P1 through P30.
Second.
With a motion and a second, Mr. Eldridge, if you could call roll.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Kroger?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Dr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Pluta?
Yes.
Ms. Santos?
Yes.
Mr. Van Hise?
Yes.
Ms. Farmer?
Yes,
Motion carried.
thank you. Okay. Next, moving on to CIAPD.
Great. CIAPD did meet February 1st, 8:45 to 10:15. It was a well-attended meeting. The assessment meeting, so we had all the supervisors there. Andrew Zuckerman, Ross Case, and Amanda Santos, Rob Pluta, Pepper Evans, myself, Linda Mithog, Shia Draper, Nicole Sass, Rebecca Gunther, Kristen Burke, Maureen Hayes, Mary Pancoast, and Yvette Panasewicz. The majority of the meeting was spent on assessment data, which you all heard tonight. There was more detail and questions asked and discussion occurred. Additionally, note the Lhs Parent Night is on February 24th. It's an alternative to the prior open houses. This night is solely for incoming freshmen and their parents to become oriented to the high school program, so it's limited relative to open houses being wide open to the community. An in-person and a virtual option will both be available. And we are back also taking field trip requests. LHS Theater Competition at Bucks County Playhouse in May, that's on the agenda, and the DECA field trip overnight to Atlantic City at the end of the month is also on the agenda. With that, I request that we move IS1 through IS12.
Second?
With a motion and a second, if we could call roll, please, Mr. Eldridge.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Kroger?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Dr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Pluta?
Yes.
Ms. Santos?
Yes.
Mr. Van Hise?
Yes.
Ms. Farmer?
Yes,
Motion carried.
thank you. Finance Committee report.
Finance Committee met on Friday from 8 a.m. till 9:30 p.m. In attendance were Michelle King, Kevin Van Heist, Patricia Farmer was in for Greg Johnson, myself, Ross Cason, and Tom Eldridge. We did discuss how the staff are working under such pressure to do more than usual, especially with the social emotional things, at a time when they find it difficult to take care of themselves and their own families. And we're asking everyone to keep that in mind and give them the respect that they deserve. We did talk about the budget, in particular about the issue of transparency. And the business office transactions are published. The Board of Ed approves a bills list, which shows who got paid and why. It's online for the public. The board approves the treasurer's report, which validates that our checkbook balance reconciles to the bank balances, just like mine at home. It's online for the public. The board approves the board secretary's report. The board approves appropriations transfers. The board adopts the official budget online in many forms for the public. We award bids for goods and services, which is available via email. We approve every hire. We approve out-of-district placements documented in the minutes. The school business administrator's work is audited by third parties, multiple places, including with annual audits. The board accepts the audit online for the public, and the board adopts the meeting schedule, which is posted and published. We reviewed some professional contracts, and we are satisfied with the performance of our professional services provided by our attorneys, our brokers, and auditors. We have ongoing facilities contracts. We had a custodial bid that we rejected and put out for a new bid. We're looking for cost savings with prescription, medical, and possible carrier change. We agreed to renew the YMCA's contract. We agreed to accept an easement with PSE&G at the 290 building. And we discussed walking distance, as we have over the years. This time, we discussed the possibility of not going beyond the state mandated 2 miles for the kids that are in the Twin Meadows area. And we agreed that we would look for a possible solution. We had no referrals to other committees. With that, I'd like to move SBM 1 through 17.
I'll second.
With a motion and a second, Mr. Eldridge, if you could call the roll.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Mrs. Groger?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
And if we could just
Yeah.
ask you to just state your name and
Nick
provide your
Sir,
address for the record. We
116
forgot to do that.
Oakland Terrace. Did I just hear correctly, you're thinking about making the distance to walk to school even longer than 2 miles, possibly for a certain? Did I understand
No.
that correctly?
No.
No, we'd offered courtesy busing for many, many years, and with the budget the way it is, that was something that we talked about in committee, about taking away some of the courtesy busing that exceeded what we were doing in the past to go to the state requirements.
Well, back to Eggert's Crossing and 206. I've asked in years past to put at least a lighted car, a police car. It's a dynamic intersection. We've had 2 deaths there. I've asked 3 different times from council to this area here. It's funny that I can see police cars on Princeton Pike, which is 25-mile speed limit, 1 lane. There's no dynamic to that road other than the 1 lane, but yet Eggert's Crossing, I think you all need to survey your crossing guard intersections, and I think you'll find out that Eggert's Crossing and 206 is the most hazardous you have. And I've seen too many near misses. I mean, there was an accident there the other night. Had there been kids there, would have not ended well. So I'm asking you again, somehow find the resources before we have to lose an innocent life, another crossing guard, God forbid, a kid. Put a lighted car at that intersection. I'm not even asking you for an officer. Take your SRO car, put that over there, light it at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, just so that people are driving, that they see a lighted car, and it's an indication that, whoa, there's something there, let me slow down. Because it's posted 35, and with these big rigs and dump trucks that are running through there, it's a dangerous intersection, and something better has to be done. There's a good crossing guard there, but he's not strong enough, in my opinion. We can do better in that intersection. Okay. One last thing. One last thing. All right, Joanne, you've been here just for about... I'm sorry. It's only been 2 hours that you're here, and you're struggling with your mask. Last thing on the masks, let's take these masks off these kids. Let's give them the opportunity. They're sitting for 7 hours with these masks on. I'm just pointing out the obvious. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, new business.
Just before we get to new business, if I could, I think we adjusted the schedule to our public input opportunities when we went into, we were doing remote meetings, and we did that so that we would be assured. I'm just wondering if we ought to re-space out the public input opportunities. So people had to wait a good 2 hours before they were able to speak tonight.
That makes sense.
So if we could put one back earlier before we do all of the reports. We took that away, if I recall, Kevin, is this right? We took that away because we wanted to ensure that we completed the business without any interruption to the...
We did a reorder.
No, exactly. We reordered it. We did not take it away. We reordered it.
Especially with the technological limitations that we have and the ability to drop off, it was going to be problematic if we did not.
So now that we're back in person, perhaps we could move a public input a little closer to the beginning of the meeting to allow public.
Traditionally, what we would do is run that through one of the committees, because that requires actually a policy change.
Okay.
Because our agenda is actually set forth in the board policies. So we would, Madam Chair, if you want to refer that over to committee, and then they could discuss that in committee, and then seek an amendment to the board
And which
policy.
committee would that be?
I just want to understand, so what we're asking is to consider moving the public input, one of the public input time periods earlier in the agenda. Is that correct?
So from the K spot, perhaps to someplace earlier.
Okay. And my understanding is that that is a policy change that would need to take place in committee?
No, it requires a policy change, but usually we run all of our policies through the initial committee first, so that it can be discussed, as Ms. Groger had indicated before. That's where a lot of the, the homework, we do a lot of the analysis, and then that committee would make a recommendation, whether to leave the policy alone, whether to amend it, or any suggestions. Here is the proposed order, so that they could actually propose a policy, would then come to the whole board and be adopted, or considered for adoption.
And up for question is, which committee would then review?
Which committee would review the policy for the
To
board?
make the change?
I would suggest community relations.
Community relations, very good.
Okay.
Great.
We can decide that here
Thank you.
this evening, that we'll have community relations, review the public input, the place of it in the agenda, and we'll report back to the public on that, on whether or not that change occurs and where in the agenda it will happen.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good suggestion. No.
Do I hear half an hour?
Okay.
Committee relations we'll take that up.
Okay.
And
So new business,
Come to
okay,
an-
now if
New
we can have
business?
new business.
Okay, new business you'll find tonight on the agenda: substitute approvals, leave approvals, background clearance confirmation, and pass the trash, assistant and volunteer appointments, as well as a motion for affirmative action team to conduct a needs assessment for the comprehensive equity plan. I'd like to move NB1 through NB15, I believe it is.
I'll remain perfect in my seconding motion, or the seconding
Okay.
things this evening, so I'll second.
He's on a roll.
Okay, with a motion and a second, if we could please call the roll, Mr. Eldridge.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Grover?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Dr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Paluda?
Yes.
Ms. Santos?
Yes.
Mr. Van Hise?
Yes.
Ms. Farmer?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, thank you. And with that, if we could have, if there are no other comments from the board, if we could have a motion for adjournment.
So moved?
Second?
With a motion and a second, if we could please call the roll, Mr. Eldridge.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Grover?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Dr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Pluta?
Yes.
Ms. Santos?
Yes.
Mr. Van Hise?
Yes.
Ms. Farmer?
Yes,
Motion
and with
carried.
that, we're adjourned.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.